You've probably seen this face before. For more than 2 decades, the murder of 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey has absolutely haunted America. I mean, it's so much more than just a cold case, right? It's become this cultural obsession, this tangled web of conflicting evidence where there are no clear heroes or villains. So today, we're going to try to untangle the facts from the fiction. We'll look at the evidence that points in 2 totally different directions, and we're going to ask the question that still hangs in the air. What really happened in that house on Christmas night? So picture this, it's a perfect Christmas night in Boulder, Colorado, a wealthy, peaceful town. Inside a beautiful home, the Ramsey family is celebrating. You know, everything seems perfect. But as the snow is falling outside, a complete nightmare was unfolding within those walls, a crime that would just shatter that idyllic image and turn this house into one of the most infamous crime scenes in American history. 6. She was just 6 years old. That's how old JonBenét Ramsey was. A little girl known for her bright smile on the child beauty pageant circuit. Her life was brutally cut short in the one place she should have been the absolute safest, her own home. Okay, so in a case that is just filled with speculation, let's start with what we actually know for sure. Before we get into any of the theories or accusations, there are a handful of cold, hard facts from the morning of December 26, 1996. And honestly, these facts are where the mystery really begins. So right from the get-go, there was no question this was a murder. The autopsy revealed a really brutal 2-part attack. JonBenét had been struck on the head with immense force, causing a severe skull fracture, and then she was strangled. The coroner's report made it official. This was a homicide, and the killer was on the loose. You know, they always say the first 48 hours are everything in a murder investigation. But in the JonBenét Ramsey case, the first few hours were a complete disaster. The crime scene and the truly bizarre clues found inside it set this investigation on a path it could just never recover from. Okay, this timeline is where things start to feel off. Patsy Ramsey calls 911 at 5:52 a.m., frantic, reporting a kidnapping. Police get there in just 3 minutes, but for the next 7 hours, there's this massive search going on, all while JonBenét's body is hidden in the basement of the very same house. And who finds her? Not the police, her own father. This is a textbook example of what not to do. The crime scene was never secured. Friends and family were allowed to just roam around freely, and one friend even started wiping down the kitchen counters. Then, in a moment of what you can only imagine was pure grief, John Ramsey picked up his daughter's body, contaminating the scene in a way that could never, ever be undone. In those first few hours, crucial evidence was likely just gone, erased forever. And then there's the ransom note. It might be the most bizarre and debated piece of evidence in this whole case. Patsy Ramsey said she found it on the back staircase, and right away it was just weird. It was 2.5 pages long. I mean, that's almost unheard of for a ransom note. They're usually short, sweet, and to the point. The amount they demanded was just as strange. Exactly $118,000. Not a round number like $100,000, but a very, very specific figure. A figure that John Ramsey recognized immediately. It was almost the exact amount of a bonus he had just gotten from work. I mean, is that a coincidence? Or did the writer have inside knowledge of the Ramseys' finances? The note was filled with this over-the-top, almost movie-like language. It was signed SBTC and had this bizarre line. To investigators, this didn't sound like a real kidnapper. It sounded like someone trying to sound like a kidnapper from a bad spy thriller. Yeah, the red flags around this note were just impossible to ignore. It was written on a notepad from inside the house, with a pen from inside the house. And the real nail in the coffin? Investigators found what looked like a practice draft of the note. For the police, the conclusion was pretty inescapable. This note was staged, written by someone inside the Ramsey home to fake a kidnapping. The murder weapon itself was, well, it was disturbingly personal. JonBenét was strangled with a garrote, but it wasn't some professional weapon. It was homemade, put together from a length of nylon cord and the broken handle of a paintbrush that belonged to Patsy Ramsey. So once again, the evidence was pointing inward, suggesting the killer used materials found right there in the house. And then there's the pineapple. This is one of those weird little details that makes you go, huh? The autopsy found undigested pineapple in JonBenét's stomach, which means she ate it not long before she died. Her parents insisted they hadn't given her any. But down in the kitchen, police found a bowl of pineapple with a spoon. The fingerprints on the bowl? Patsy's. And the prints on the spoon? They belonged to JonBenét's 9-year-old brother, Burke.
So you've got a staged ransom note, a murder weapon made from household items, and this mysterious bowl of pineapple. You add all of that up, and you can see why all these clues started pointing investigators away from an outside intruder and toward the people inside the house. This led them down the path that would define the case for years, the theory that this was a family affair.
You know, when a child is murdered in their own home, there's a sad, hard truth that investigators know all too well. The killer is almost always a family member. One FBI profiler even put the odds at 12 to 1. For police, this isn't just a statistic, it's a guiding principle. You always start your investigation with the people closest to the victim. Okay, so let's just recap the evidence against the family. No forced entry, a ransom note that was clearly staged, a murder weapon made from things in the house, and the body was left behind. For the police, this didn't look like a kidnapping gone wrong. It looked like a murder followed by a really clumsy and desperate cover-up. And the evidence was so compelling to some people that in 1999, a grand jury actually voted to indict both John and Patsy Ramsey for child abuse resulting in death. This should have been it, right? The moment the case went to trial. But in a move that completely shocked the public, the district attorney at the time refused to sign the indictment. He argued he just couldn't prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, which effectively shut down the whole prosecution. But just when the case against the Ramseys seems sealed, the entire narrative gets turned on its head. Because for every single piece of evidence pointing to the family, there's another piece that points to a terrifying alternative. A stranger was in the house that night. And that brings us to the intruder theory. This is the counter-narrative, and it was championed passionately by a veteran detective named Lou Smith. He actually quit the case in protest because he was so sure the DA was wrong to focus on the Ramseys. He believed the evidence showed a stranger had broken in and killed JonBenét. And the evidence for an intruder is pretty compelling too. The real cornerstone of this theory is DNA. Unknown male DNA was found in JonBenét's underwear and on her leggings, and it didn't match anyone in the family or anyone in any criminal database. Add to that a broken basement window, an unidentified boot print down in the wine cellar, and a whole string of recent burglaries in the neighborhood, and the picture of a phantom intruder starts to take shape. I mean, this DNA has been the central battleground of this case for years. In 2008, a new district attorney, Mary Lacey, took the really extraordinary step of publicly exonerating the Ramsey family based on new touch DNA tests. She even wrote them a letter of apology. But years later, the police department fired back. The former chief called the exoneration a huge mistake, arguing the DNA could just be from a factory worker who handled the clothing and have nothing to do with the crime. This public fight shows you just how fractured this investigation really was. So, here we are. We have two compelling theories, each with its own set of evidence and each pointing to a totally different killer. So how is it possible that with so much information, we're no closer to the truth than we were back in 1996? Well, the answer really lies in the very foundation of the investigation itself. This case went cold because of a perfect storm of reasons. First, it began with that contaminated crime scene, a fatal error that made it impossible to know what was real evidence and what wasn't. Then you've got the evidence itself, a collection of clues that literally seem to cancel each other out. And finally, the investigation was just crippled by infighting, with the police and the DA's office chasing different suspects and publicly undermining each other. It was a case that was broken from the very start. And so we're left with this perfect stalemate, a case where the evidence creates two equally plausible, yet totally opposite realities. Was it a family tragedy covered up with a bizarre story? Or was it a brutal attack by a phantom intruder who just slipped away into the night? The pieces of this puzzle just don't fit together, leaving us with one haunting question. In a case this broken, can justice for JonBenét ever truly be found?